Nitza. You really didn't make it easy for me this time. This is my first time making a speech evaluation, and I was thinking, oh, she's not really prepared, so maybe I might be a bit busy finding the negatives, but I couldn't find really any negatives about your speech. You told me you weren't prepared. You told me you weren't prepared. And to be honest, if you didn't tell me it at the beginning of today's meeting, I wouldn't have noticed. So it was great. There's four positives I'd like to highlight, and that's structure, story, engaging, and consistency. Structure, you had a beginning, you had a middle, you had an end. You had the three pillars of an important speech. It's like an airplane when it's flying. It can't fly unless there's a good takeoff. And look, you took us flying when you asked us a rhetorical question. You know, do you guys have trouble with presentations? I think that's what you said. And then on a plane, you know, you can have turbulence and it can be, you know, iffy here and there. And at some points, maybe you were talking a bit too fast. But to be honest with you, it was really hard to pick up on like the negatives. You wanted me to look at your pauses, and to be honest with you, there was almost no problem with your pausing. And at the end, it was pretty good. You talked about how you mentored someone else into presenting, and I think that was kind of a good lead off or kind of a good ending to your whole story of how you struggled with presentations. Story, yeah, it was a really good story. You failed at first, and then you came back and you killed it with your presentation. And I think that's what makes a really moving story, is that you always have a story that has, like, you know, has tragedy, and then there's a triumph, and then there's tragedy again, and there's triumph again. Yeah. And that's also another really key aspect of having a good speech, is that you have those kind of like highs and lows. Engaging. When I think of really good speakers, they're always like, they always tell a good story, but they're also really engaging. And you ask questions like, so what do you guys think about presentations? You cracked your joke here and there, you said something that's bullshit, you know. And then consistency, I asked myself, you know, if I did a speech, is there going to be consistency? And you were consistent in asking questions. You were consistent, you know, you didn't just ask one question from the beginning of the speech. You asked questions from the beginning, middle, and end. And same with your hand movements and walking around. It wasn't just, you just stood here for the first 2 minutes and you did nothing, or you kind of walked around throughout the whole speech. And that's what I really liked about, you know, it's just consistency. And I think consistency in speaking is really underrated. The only negatives is, at the end, I prefer if maybe what you could do is wrapping up your 3 points. You said talk advice about speaking. You start speaking, talk consistently, and then speak to random people. Maybe you could highlight those points at the end. And then pauses. Maybe if you added a bit more pauses, it would have really highlighted the impact of your highs and lows. Other than that, you weren't fast and you were really engaging. And yeah, thank you.